Hello, lovely humans of the internet. As you know by now, I am the founder and artistic director of Opera CECILIA, a new opera company based out of the west coast of the US that was made by and for emerging artists and local talent to bridge the gaps between opera and the contemporary music world and kind of create more fun and meaningful and lucrative opportunities for artists that are particularly at the beginning of our careers. We have the second performance of our inaugural season coming up, and we have a virtual version that is being released. We are doing excerpts from Handel's Messiah, most of the excerpts coming from the Christmas portion. We're collaborating with Portland's Grotto Festival of Lights, but we will also be producing a virtual artistic version of the show with interlaid beautiful Pacific Northwest landscapes. Tickets are available now, and we have a link in our description if you are interested. They're donation-based. Once you register for a ticket, you get sent the link and you get access to the show indefinitely. It officially premieres on January 1st, 2022, the virtual version. We will be performing this live at the Grotto on the evening of December 23rd, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you happen to be in the area, you just have to get a standard admission ticket for the Grotto and head over into the Chapel of Mary to see us perform. Today we're doing a very, very special video, and it's special for a myriad of reasons. The first of which is that this is an absolute queen of opera. She is a singer that I admire very much for her artistry, her commanding stage presence, her musicianship, and that is none other than the incomparable Jessye Norman. She also recently passed away. About 2 years ago, the opera world experienced a very big loss. So we would like to dedicate this video to any of her family and loved ones as a memorial to her. She was 74 years old. She was born September 15th, 1945 in Augusta, Georgia. This video is made out of respect and in order to honor her incredible legacy. We're actually going to be analyzing and looking at a recording of her performing When I Am Laid in Earth, which is a very, very famous aria from the opera Dido and Aeneas by composer Henry Purcell. This opera is in English, which is cool. Normally we do foreign language works when we do opera videos on this channel. This is also a very special version because it's actually filmed sort of like a music video, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Let's hop on the nerdy train and go down the nerdy journey together. Jessye Norman is an American opera singer and recitalist. She was able to perform roles as a dramatic soprano, which is one of the biggest voice types out there if you're familiar with different voice types in the opera world, but she refused to be just put into that box or just limited to those kind of roles. She wanted to have a more diverse career. She was a commanding presence on the operatic concert and recital stages, and she's associated with roles such as Beethoven's Leonora, Wagner's Sieglinde. The New York Times music critic Edward Rothstein described her voice as a grand mansion of sound and wrote that it has enormous dimensions reaching backward and upward. It opens into unexpected vistas. It contains sunlit rooms, narrow passageways, and cavernous halls, which is a really, really beautiful and poetic way of saying that she has a lot of color to her voice and she has many dramatic nuances and dimensions to her artistry, and she's not afraid to show all of them when she is on stage. Norman trained at Howard University, the Peabody Institute, and the University of Michigan. Her career began in Europe, where she won the ARD International Music Competition in Munich in 1968, which led to a contract with the Deutsche Oper Berlin. Her operatic debut came as Elizabeth in Wagner's Tannhäuser. I think it's Tannhäuser. Yeah, after which she sang as Verdi's Aida at La Scala in Milan, so some of the most prominent opera houses in the world. So this woman not only had a very prolific career in her own field, but she also crossed over into some very, very important athletic related and politically related events in history, including presidential inaugurations, queens' birthdays, all sorts of crazy stuff. After graduating, Norman, like many American young musicians, moved to Europe to establish herself. That was a very common thing. People still do that now, but I don't know. American young opera singers, if there's any that end up viewing this video, and I hope there is, please tell me if you feel like that's still a common thing to do, because I do feel like I've heard a lot of fellow emerging artists in the industry going that route and just moving to Europe, especially if you get a fest contract, which is usually like a summer type contract with a European opera house, or if you end up in an ensemble for a European opera house, of course you'd move over there. I've done a little bit of work internationally, mostly with young artist programs, but I would be really interested to see if you feel like this is still a super commonplace thing to do. So let me know in the comments. I think this goes without saying, that artists like her are fantastic examples of the amazing contributions that artists of color have made to the operatic landscape, and in an art form that is traditionally has a tendency to be very, very white dominated and unfortunately has significant racial barriers for artists of color, especially African-American artists. I think it's really important for us to amplify their voices, to give these operatic legends and current operatic artists of color in the landscape all of our support, and to continue to diversify this art form as much as possible and appreciate and understand their legacy and contributions to it too. My support and love to all of you. Thank you for all of your contributions to this art form, that they deserve to be celebrated. Henry Purcell was born in London, England. He was an English composer of the Middle Baroque period, to be exact. He's most remembered for his more than 100 art songs, but the tragic opera Dido and Aeneas went forward to the forefront and is a part of standard repertoire even to this day. He also has some incidental music to a version of Shakespeare's Midsummer Night Dream called The Fairy Queen. He's the most important English composer of his time, and he composed music from church to state to court to private entertainment, which was very common at the time. A lot of times these Baroque musicians would actually be hired among the wealthy elite and kind of stay with a wealthy family and be commissioned to create works for that family. Artists today are still kind of not necessarily being commissioned by specific families, but definitely living in a gig economy. I swear I do performance gigs professionally as much as I possibly can. I'm in the middle of an active audition season right now. I am a teacher, I'm a YouTuber, I am a church musician, I do freelance gigs like weddings, funerals, things like that, and I'm working on creating my own contemporary music. So that's just like one example of how multifaceted artists' careers end up being. Just kind of relating people from the 1600s to us. We haven't changed a lot. We have in some ways, definitely. Thank God castrati don't exist anymore, for example. Purcell's genius as a composer for the stage was hampered by there being no public opera in London during his lifetime. Most of his theater music consists simply of instrumental music and songs interpolated into spoken drama, though occasionally there were opportunities for more extended musical scenes. His contribution to the stage was in fact modest until 1689, when he wrote Dido and Aeneas for a performance at a girls' school in Chelsea. This work achieves a high degree of dramatic intensity within a narrow framework. From that time until his death, he was constantly employed in writing music for the public theaters. These productions included some that gave scope for more than merely incidental music, notably music for Diocletian, for King Arthur. He does have some other operas out there, but Dido and Aeneas kind of served as his catalyst and his most famous work that got him more into composing for the theater. As the last little part of my nerdy journey, thank you for bearing with me, folks. I just wanted to talk a little bit about a synopsis of Dido and Aeneas. I think it's always interesting and helps us inform our opinion of the performer's dramatic interpretation of the work. Dido and Aeneas is split into 3 acts. Act 1 of Dido and Aeneas takes place in the palace. Dido, the queen of Carthage, had determined to never remarry after the death of her husband. She is now tormented by her attraction for their Trojan guest, Aeneas. Belinda, her sister and attendant, urges that uniting their 2 kingdoms would benefit both. Aeneas arrives and convinces Dido of his love, and she accepts him. In scene 1, it takes place in a sorcerer's cave, and it's a sorceress and her witch's plot basically for the downfall of Dido, which is one of the main characters, obviously, judging by the title of the work. They will conjure a storm and then send an elf disguised as Mercury to remind Aeneas that the gods have decreed his duty is set sail for Italy. Scene 2 is in the grove. Dido and Aeneas, accompanied by their court, are enjoying a day outdoors with a hunt and feasting. Their festivities are ended by the promised storm, and as all are rushing back to the palace, Aeneas is stopped by the disguised Mercury. Aeneas consents to what he believes are the orders of the gods, but he is distraught because he must leave Dido. By the way, if I sound really nasally in this video, that's because I'm recovering from a little bit of a cold, so I apologize if everything kind of sounds a little bit in my nose. Act 3, scene 1, the seaside. At the shore, Aeneas's men are preparing to set sail. The witches gloat over their success. And then scene 2 is at the palace. Dido has been informed of her lover's planned departure and furiously dismisses Belinda's attempts to calm her. She confronts Aeneas over his unforgivable betrayal of their love. Though he vows to stay, she orders him away, knowing she must die at her leaving. At his leaving, she asks that she be remembered well, and that's where Dido's lament comes in. She's talking about how she's gonna die because of the loss of her lover, and she's saying, "Remember me after I die." very tragic. A lot of operatic plots have very tragic endings. Unfortunately, most of the operas I've talked about so far on this channel have had very tragic endings. I guess I'm just gonna have to do an opera buffa or a comedic opera at some point in the future. The source material is based on book 4 of Virgil's epic, the Aeneid. I hope I'm saying that right. It is one of the earliest known English operas and one of the most important and often performed operas written in the Baroque period. It is also Henry Purcell's only true opera, that is, his only all-sung dramatic work. What is most remarkable for such an important work in the opera repertoire is that so little about it is known. A copy of a libretto from the 1700s exists, possibly from the first performance, so we know it originally was composed as a prologue in opera. However, the music for the prologue, the end of the Act 2 Grove scene, and several dances have been lost, and indeed no score exists in Purcell's handwriting. Moreover, the dates of composition in the first performance are uncertain. It is known, though, in references to letters, that it was performed at a girls' school in Chelsea, London, as we talked about earlier in the Britannica article. However, some scholars argue that the opera was composed and performed for the royal court of either James I or Charles II. Whatever history of the opera is waiting to be uncovered, what we do know, and perhaps most important of all, is that Purcell's Dido and Aeneas is a deeply moving and unforgettable opera. This is Dido's Lament, When I Am Laid in Earth by Henry Purcell, performed by none other than the fantastic Jessye Norman. First of all, look at how stunning this woman looks. She looks like some sort of just like beautiful ethereal queen in this video. And there's so much opulence to this video, yet it's about something that is so deeply heartbreaking, and it is also about emotions that we can kind of all relate to. Hopefully, most of us, the majority of us, if not all of us, are not necessarily driven to suicidal thoughts and actions as a result of that. But that was a very common gut-wrenching emotion to write about in Baroque era operas. And she's also a member of royalty, and so you have the contrast of being surrounded by all of this opulence while also having this absolutely crushed and deeply heartbroken character. And I feel like Jessye Norman is so good at accomplishing that because she has such a beautiful grandiosity, not only to her physical appearance and her stage presence, but also to her voice and the sheer size of this instrument. But at the same time, she's able to use dynamics and clever vocalisms to create that sense of intimacy. Vocally, she has what is considered very, very beautiful balanced onsets that allows her to keep excellent control over her instrument. A balanced onset is basically when the tone and the air happen at the same time. So there isn't escaping air that happens before the tone comes in, and there's not a glottal onset too much where she's going, ugh. That's easier to do in a language that's a tiny bit harsher, like English or German. So the fact that she's able to keep that really beautiful, stunning, controlled legato line through this English language text is very impressive. Gosh, she is so expressive. She has a beautiful use of ending consonants. Breast. It's super important to have clear diction as an opera singer, especially if you're singing English repertoire. It can be really easy to clip final consonants in these harsher languages. But actually, if you lay into those consonants and you keep them really bright at the tip of your tongue, that's why with my little kids, I do this little exercise called the tip of the tongue, the teeth, the lips, and they talk about like keeping those consonants really nice and forward. Then you're able to allow them to not interrupt the legato line quite so much. What is also incredible about her is she's starting doing every phrase really piano, and then she grows to the fullness of the volume of her voice as time goes on. And once again, we're always singing on dynamics as opera singers, so that's only going to help her technique and maintain her sense of musicality consistently throughout. Also, those expressions of anguish in her face and the calculation of her dramatic movements. Every single bit of her artistry is working harmoniously with the other parts, and together it creates this holistically beautiful and emotional, moving performance. Damn it, I'm getting emotional. I think part of the reason why I am is because I haven't really watched this video in its entirety, and the reason this was filmed artistically like a music video, like I said before, and it showcases her facial expressions so much more closely than you could if you were watching a recording of a live performance in an opera, or if you were even in the live audience. So it's a different kind of artistic medium where you get to see more nuance in her facial expressions, and it's hard to watch because of the subject matter of the piece, where she's saying, "Remember me, remember my legacy," and she just recently passed away, and she had a huge Taylor, get it together. Jeez, I wasn't expecting that. But she had a huge legacy, and it's hard for us to watch this now, knowing that we don't get to see that anymore. We don't get to see any new performances from this incredible opera diva, but at the same time, her legacy will live on for generations to come. If you were to create like a royal court of opera, in my opinion, she would be the queen. It's just her presence and her strength on stage is astounding. I think it's really important also to realize that while I'm not a fan of stereotyping people in terms of like body type or face shape as a certain type of singer, there is some truth to the fact that our anatomy plays a role in the type of voice that we possess. And she has this beautiful bone structure, and she has this space inside of her mouth that accommodates these really, really gorgeous, rich tones and beautiful sounds. And I'm not gonna say too much more about that, but it's just an interesting observation. There is kind of a bone structure that I notice like dramatic sopranos have that is really, really beautiful. I really appreciate the fact that she didn't just limit herself to Wagner roles, or didn't just limit herself to dramatic roles, because Dido is not necessarily sung always by a dramatic soprano. It can be, and it oftentimes is sung, I think, by a bigger voice, but I've seen like medium to lyric voices singing this repertoire too. Not only is she having left a legacy for herself just as an artist in general, but also leaving this legacy of starting foundations or raising awareness for other African-American musicians who come after her, and celebrating Black excellence in this field. Also to inspire, hopefully, other people, especially people in places of privilege, to look those things up and do more appreciation and educate yourself on those. It's just, in many cases, a simple Google search away at this point, and it's incredibly important work for all of us to be unpacking and doing. Oh man. I think the last observation I really wanted to make, because we did already get into some of her vocal technique, is the fact that she is able to hold attention so well in long interludes in between musical phrases that she sings. She's just I don't know, she's just a force to be reckoned with, and such a role model to all of us emerging opera singers out there of claiming your own space. She's also really famous in an interview for being quite body positive. She doesn't understand like this business of like opera singers not being hired because they don't fit into costumes that the opera company has. She thinks it's ridiculous that costumes wouldn't be made for them. You're supposed to be hiring singers based off of their ability and not off of their size, and I think that's very true. We have to make sure that that's what we're leading with, because this is an art form that is about the quality of the voice and the musicality of the voice, and that can inhabit any body type. Body positivity for the win, and Jessye Norman for the win as well. Once again, rest in peace, beautiful queen. We love you here at Opera Cecilia, and we will continue to listen to your recordings until the end of our days. If you're interested in more of what Opera Cecilia has to offer, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Continue to help us support our channel so that we can continue to grow, and please let us know if you have any video recommendations for us in the operatic literature. We are an opera company, so we definitely will continue to put operatic video reactions and content out there, but we will also be doing a lot more contemporary music content too. And my Angelina fans, if any of you are viewing this video, and I hope you're checking out my other content, I wanted to thank you so much for all of the Angelina Jordan fans out there real quick, for all of the incredible love and support that you've given this channel. You've helped us get over halfway to our monetization eligibility goal. That's our first benchmark goal for this channel, so thank you so much, and we have another Angelina video coming to you soon. I love you all so much. This channel means so much to us. It's just so amazing and such a dream come true that it's growing and gaining traction. So thank you for going on the nerdy journey with me, and I hope to see you all around here again soon. Bye.